Hello, Tony Hines here, and you're listening to Right to the Point. And on Right to the Point, that's exactly what we do. We get right to the point. So, hope you enjoy the podcast. The Future of Work.
Right to the point.
So the big question is remote work the future of work? Well, let's dive in and find out.
Okay, so anyone else struggling to resist the siren song of those work-from-home ads, you know, the ones with the people in pajamas, sipping coffee, laptop on a beach, I admit, ditching the commute, dreamy. But let's be real, my productivity took a nosedive somewhere between the fridge and, well, let's just say my couch became a bit too comfy.
Yeah, the reality of remote work versus the fantasy, right?
Exactly. So today we're diving into this whole remote work dilemma. We've got this piece by Tony Hines, and he's really tackling the big question. Is this remote thing truly the future of work, or are we all headed for a rude awakening?
And what I find really interesting is that Hines doesn't just skim the surface. He digs into whether remote work is sustainable, if it's actually effective, and really importantly, for whom. Because let's be honest, not every job, not every person fits into this work from anywhere mold.
Absolutely. And one of the things Hines talked about that really resonated with me is this. The risk of losing those spontaneous moments of collaboration that you just can't seem to replicate on Zoom. You know, like those pre-pandemic coffee break brainstorms that would spark the best ideas.
Oh, totally.
The article really highlights how crucial those seemingly casual interactions are for innovation. And it's something that these remote setups, they really need to figure out.
And it's not even just about hitting those productivity goals, right? Hines argues that there's a real risk of eroding that sense of belonging, that camaraderie you get from actually being part of a team, being in a shared space.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And speaking of teams, let's talk about small businesses. This is where the article really got me thinking because it highlights the unique challenges that remote work poses for smaller companies, especially those that are really built on those close-knit personal relationships.
Right, because think about it. Your local coffee shop, that independent bookstore you love, is pointing out that for them, face-to-face interaction, that's everything. It's how they build trust, loyalty, that special something that keeps customers coming back for more.
It's so true. And it's not just about, keeping the lights on. The source actually cites this study by, and I'm going to butcher this name, I think, the National Bureau of Economic Research, showing that small businesses contribute to almost half of new job creation. So their success. It has ripple effects throughout the entire economy.
Massive implications. This isn't just about, do I want to wear sweatpants while I work anymore? This is about the future of how we work, period. And this is where Hines gets really interesting. He talks about how some jobs might fundamentally change because of this whole remote work shift, not just disappear, but evolve.
It's kind of like you can't exactly perform open heart surgery remotely, right?
Exactly.
But designing a logo, that can be done from anywhere. So are we potentially on the verge of this massive job evolution rather than just a shift in location?
$1 million question, and Hines leaves us wondering, what new roles might pop up? What skills will be super in demand as technology just completely reshapes the way we approach work? It's exciting, but also, a little bit daunting.
Totally. So, for everyone listening, where do you stand on all this? Are you team remote, team in person, or somewhere in between? Have you found ways to make remote work actually work for you? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so share them with us.
And here's something else to chew on. Hines really makes us question if this whole remote work setup is here to stay. But maybe the bigger, more important question is this. How do we design workplaces, both remote and in person, that put well-being, connection, purpose at the forefront? That's a future I think we can all get behind.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, that's a wrap for today's deep dive on the future of work. Thanks for being here.
Right to the point.
Well, thanks, guys. That's a pretty comprehensive review of my article, and I think you did a great job. So I'm just going to wrap up a few things that I just want to add and say, and then we'll call it a wrap. Well, I like the idea of remote working, and I enjoyed it in some of the jobs I've had, where I was able to work in my own surroundings. But there are, of course, disadvantages to working in your own home and connecting with people remotely. There's the tech, for a start. You need good tech to do it, and you need support. And other people have got to have good tech too, so you can connect. Otherwise, you can waste a lot of time trying to connect with people, and they're not actually connecting up very easily. So that's one thing. Then there's the kind of using your home space as workspace. And actually, you're paying for a home. You're not paying to be in work as such. So that's a downside too, because you've got to give away home space. The other downside, of course, is that time that you give over to work might be extended because it's quite comfortable to be at home and you can take late meetings or early meetings. Now, there are both advantages and disadvantages to that, and I think that's an interesting take. On the plus side, you don't have to go and jump in a car, catch a train, catch a plane, because you don't have to travel. And you can save a lot of time travelling. And that's a big, big plus. And of course, it's better for the green economy because you're not making a major carbon footprint. Apart from, of course, the electricity that you're using at home to connect with people all over the world. So, pluses and minuses. And those are just a few. And there is a downside, of course, for the economy, in a sense that if firms no longer need office space because they're using your home as part of the capital that you're paying for, then what happens to all those rented buildings, those rented offices in city centres, in all those large buildings? What do they become if everybody switches out of working in offices? And what happens to the social aspects as well, those social interactions, by the cooler, by the coffee, or by any other interaction, the meetings at work which are face-to-face, where you get to know people and how people behave, because you can only see head and shoulders on a screen, and you don't really get to know the person particularly well on screens. Friendships aren't built that way. Teams are difficult to build that way. They can be built that way, but they're difficult to build. So remote working is not ideal in every circumstances, and as was mentioned, there are jobs where remote working just isn't possible because it demands that a person is actually on the spot. So I don't think we should see it as a panacea. But obviously, the benefits in some circumstances can be good, and in other circumstances, it might just be a step too far. And I've talked about buildings, but what about all the public services and, of course, other businesses that rely on those office communities to be around, the sandwich shops, the bookstores, the other shops, where there's commercial activity that happens during lunchtimes, after work, and maybe entertainment establishments where people go after work to relax. And that won't happen, particularly with remote working, because you can't have dinner over the Zoom. And of course, what about all that wasted transport infrastructure? Think about that one. Now, I know a lot of people see hybrid working, where you work sometimes remotely from your own home or wherever you are, and at other times you're in the office. And some companies have worked out a situation where they can accommodate people for 2 or 3 days in the office and 2 or 3 days at home, depending on how the working week plays out and on the needs of the job. So maybe that's a future.
Right to the point.